Welcome to episode 3 of the Star Wars X-Wing Book Club. I'm John Barry, and today we'll be covering chapters 3 and 4 of Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron by Michael A. Stackpole. Now this video, as you can see, is not a camera video. I had to record it remotely, so I was unable to make a proper video, but we're going to go through it. It's going to be talking as normal. The only difference is it won't be a camera video. But regardless, just want to let you know that in advance. And last week we covered chapter 2, and the week before that chapter 1. So if you have not yet seen those, please go watch the playlist from the beginning if you so desire. If not, you can just pick up from where we currently are. And I also want to apologize for this being a day late. Had some difficulty finding the time to actually read and create the video, but we're working it out. It's going to be a bit shorter, but this Friday, like normal, please have the next batch of chapters, but we're going to save that for the end of the video for what we're covering next week. But let's actually focus on the chapters we had today. So, chapter 3, we're introduced to, I would say, our main antagonist, who will see his perspective a couple more times throughout the book, a decent number, and he's going to be in future books as well as the primary antagonist. But focusing just on this chapter, what we learn about him as an individual, he's compared to Grand Moff Tarkin and like his stature and all that, and also that he uses it to his advantage to garner respect because most Imperial military officers don't respect Imperial intelligence. So that also gives us an insight into the relationship between the different branches of the Empire after the Battle of Endor. We learn that basically they don't all get along, which kind of stands to reason that every branch will get along. We also learn in chapter 3 that the former head of Imperial Intelligence is now the person who's in control of the Empire, more or less. And I'm using that more or less because I know that not every Imperial will follow this one person. They're following different warlords and all that. But what this is getting at is that the Empire's leadership is not secure in its position. It's not a guarantee. Now, this is before Grand Admiral Thrawn resurfaces in the Thrawn trilogy, I should state, to give you a timeline inclination or indication, if you will. But yeah, also what we learn is more about Cohen's backstory in chapter 3, because this Imperial is basically obsessed with finding Cohen and his former associates in COSEC or Corellian security. You have so of course you got Cohen Horn, you got let me open this up so I get everything correct. Okay, so the last person is Iella, so Iella Wathari and her husband. So those are the 4 people that Quentin knows that, and the antagonist is searching for, is kind of obsessed with searching for. But Gil Bastra, essentially was their boss for the 2 that were in COSEC, Korean security, as I said, and essentially it's revealed that he's been using himself as a distraction for Quentin making him the easiest one to find on purpose, and dragging it out as long as possible to protect Wathari and Cohen Horn from basically being found out in their new identities when they're on the run from the Empire. So we get to learn that apparently Gil Bastra and Cohen Horn had a falling out at some point as well. And that's really the most that we gain from there. But there's a few other things. There are insights into the Empire mostly. But chapter 4 we return to Cohen Horn, and we learn more about his relationship with the other potential members of the reformed Rogue Squadron. And basically he's been isolating himself. He isn't engaging with them socially, he's isolating himself, so he's essentially disconnected from the group. And so the group essentially send in one of them to try to get Cornhorn to come and associate with them, to be a part of the group, and also, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, just to be a part of the group is the best way. Maybe help his attitude. They compare him to the other boy, Jace, who is essentially Cohen's main rival skill-wise. But even they say even he is associated with us, trying to in a way goad Cohen into like he has to be better than Jace at everything. So maybe he'll be better socially, if you will. It's kind of trying to. The character that the other pirates said was from Kessel, Lujan Forge. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Lujayne, Lujanze Forge. I'll just call her Forge for short. But yeah. So, and because we learn more about Cohen, that he's on the run, and because he was on the run from the Empire, which was established in the previous chapter, but we learn that because of being on the run, he has picked up the habit of not wanting to get close to people and trusting them, which is in effect affecting his social skills, and makes it hard for him to socialize and build trust with people, because, he doesn't want to blow his cover for whatever identity. So, in the Rebels, it's himself again. He's now under an assumed identity, and so he needs to relearn to be trustworthy of people again, and not to always have his guard up among people he can and should be able to trust. And then of course we learn that his fighters in Cossack live green, so instead of the rebel paint scheme, which is kind of neat. And of course we learn that his droid is called Whistler, and that and a bunch of other stuff about that. But what I really liked was essentially what we got to know more is about Cornhorn as a person, and also in how he's kind of disconnected from the rest of the group, and that he needs to better connect with the group. And the last thing that we learn is about Cohen's roommate, and I believe he's going to be his wingman as well. The Gand known as Orig. That's a hard name to say. But yeah, that's Cohen's roommate, and we learn about Gand culture and how only those two people were that. Essentially, what I'm saying is that in Gand culture, personal pronouns like I are not used by the speaker unless the person who is speaking is so well known and have accomplished so much that they've earned it as a right, and that when they say I did this, other Gans and other people will know who they are talking about. It's essentially the idea of you have to earn, in the Gan culture, you earn the right to use certain names and to use pronouns, essentially. If you've done nothing, you just called Gand. If you learn a bit more, you get I believe your family name. You do a bit more, then you get your first or personal name. And then when you earn a bit more in respect and skill and accomplishments and all that, well, essentially you're well known, you're famous, you get to use I. Which I think is kind of a neat system. And this is what I found neat. That Cohen thought to himself, and I quote, it always does seem that those who use I the most are the ones who have the least in the way of accomplishments to justify it. Essentially, what Cornhorn is saying, that those who tend to use I the most are those who are bragging about things they really don't need to brag about. Essentially, the people who are self-entitled and self-important, but really haven't done anything to earn that. Which I think is kind of neat and potentially quite relevant in today's world, especially with social media, where the I or me culture, if you will, it's all about I, never about others. So it's kind of relevant to today's world, but maybe not so much as other commentators, because when this was written, internet was not as big of a thing, and the culture was entirely different than it is today. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you, though I did like that look into Gant culture, and really does show, because sometimes I feel like in Star Wars we get too much of monolithic culture based off of human culture. It's nice to see those looks into other alien cultures. But that's all I have for you today. On this coming Friday, we'll be reading chapters 5 and 6. So if you're reading along, please have those read. And I'll see you then. So before I leave you, I would like to hear what did you think of this video, any comments and suggestions, so feedback on this video on how I can improve this series, and such, and what are you thinking in the book so far. I've been John Berry, so thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and as I said, comment down below for the questions and feedback that I asked for. I would really appreciate it, and I would love to hear from you. Also, do consider subscribing to my channel for future content, and ring the bell so you can be notified when the next episode of the book club comes out. The same goes for checking me out on social media. I do announce my videos there, but I also just like interacting with you guys there. So links for all that stuff will be in the description, as well as ways to help support my channel, besides just watching it, if you so desire. Something like Patreon, if you will. It's ultimately up to you, of course, and just by watching and commenting on on my videos, that alone is supporting my channel, especially the comments. I really like the interaction. I want to grow a community, if you will. But besides that, if you want to check out another video of mine, please check out the video on screen now, or the playlist. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.